The University of Miami offers a 15-credit program in historic preservation. The certificate program in historic preservation has been prepared to allow students to gain employment in the field. More importantly, it offers to the student new insight into the role of history and historic structures in the making of viable urban places, our cities. Vincent Scully, the great art historian, taught at the University of Miami for 20 years. Our colleague once wrote, "Cities are made in place across time. They're a conversation between generations. We build them together, generation cross generation." This very thought, in many ways, informs our understanding of historic preservation. As a recipient of the Crown and Shield Award, Professor Scully was acknowledged with the greatest honor that the National Trust for Historic Preservation can bestow on a person. And his thoughts on the importance of cities, on the importance of communities, and how they shape our world and shape our life experiences are embedded in the pedagogy of this program and in the pedagogy of the school at large. The 20th century, in many ways, saw the rise and the fall of urban flight into the suburbs. And now, with the coming of a new century and a new generation that is interested in center cities, in reinvesting in our historic infrastructure, in the environment, in ecology, and in many ways in having urban life be the center of our country again, this question of historic structures, historic neighborhoods, historic districts, and how they meld together with new architecture, making vibrant places for us to enjoy, I think is of paramount importance for young architects.
I have developed an enrichment for an existing preservation course which takes our students to Pisa, Italy. This enrichment is in the form of a workshop which is 1 week long and introduces our students to the artistic, historic, technical, and administrative components in the restoration of monuments. Enabled by the Opera Primaziale Pisana, which is a non-for-profit organization that handles all of the restoration of monuments in Tuscany, we experience the restoration process in Italy firsthand through lectures by local professionals, faculty members, guided site visits, analysis, discussions, and drawing. The students then return to Miami to continue with the study of preservation techniques in the United States.
The measured drawing course is such an important part of the historic preservation certificate. In this course, faculty and students go out to a variety of sites throughout South Florida to draw and record important historic structures throughout the region. I believe that the course has many, many lessons to teach us. The first is probably the correspondence between two-dimensional architectural drawings, which can be rather abstract, and the representation of the three-dimensional objects that you can actually touch. And so we can truly understand the relationship between drawing and building. And I believe this is a very memorable experience for students. Beyond that, I believe we also learn a great deal about the assembly of buildings, the constructive aspects of architecture, how far a lintel should span, what the proper construction of a wall is, and that is quite valuable. But finally, I believe there are some unexpected lessons in the course. I think when we are out on a site, we learn a great deal about the less tangible aspects of architecture, the way in which light impacts space, the importance of a deep eave that casts a beautiful shadow on a wall, especially in a place like South Florida, where the heat is so intense. These are the aspects of architecture that are not merely about providing basic shelter, but they have to deal with the sensorial aspects of architecture. And I believe it's these aspects that make architecture beautiful and memorable, and all of these lessons are learned within the course.
The Center for Urban and Community Design is the outreach arm of the School of Architecture. It allows students, faculty, as well as alums to become engaged in community outreach work. We have several tools that we use in order to achieve these goals, which include charrettes, which are essentially design workshops. We host symposiums and are involved with publications. The center has 3 main streams of focus. One is directly related to community outreach, the second is historic preservation, and the third is sustainability. The center hosted several symposiums on both historic preservation and sustainability in recent years, and as a consequence, we were awarded a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts to publish our findings of the Under the Sun Symposium. We continue to look for opportunities to engage our local communities and to reach out to those beyond our borders in a manner which is parallel to the mission of our university.
Since 1933, the Library of Congress has housed a growing collection of drawings, photographs, and written histories that document America's built environment. The Historic American Building Survey, known as HABS, and the Historic American Landscape Survey, known as HOUNS, are two courses here at the school that offer students the opportunity to produce primary research through on-site fieldwork and studio-produced drawings that follow strict, rigorous national standards for submission to the Library of Congress collection.
The University of Miami's Historic Preservation Program is committed to helping our community become a better place, and for individuals who lead this community to discern what's important and what's not in terms of historic preservation. The university recognizes that new construction and the availability of housing for median income persons is a necessary thing. So our students have been able to convey that through talking to groups. Our staff is always available for lectures to different groups that seek to do that, to make the community better. There are so many chambers of commerces, and their focus is much different than ours. Ours is one where we believe layers of history make a community a more livable one.
I think as a city located in the tropical belt of the nation and the world, as a city whose preservation challenges are largely dealing with contemporary buildings and the recent past, and as a city where urban design and community design and historic preservation are meshing and melding in new and innovative ways, I think Miami offers a really interesting laboratory for the study of contemporary historic preservation challenges and opportunities. And I think it's an eye-opening place in which to study historic preservation.
About 2.5 years ago, we decided to create a certificate program in historic preservation, which is now quite successful, with an aim of making it a full-blown program at the graduate level. The certificate program is accessible to both undergraduates and graduates, and it taps into the strength and the wealth of our faculty to expose students to all kinds of experiences in preservation. For example, we have measure drawing classes, and some of our students have won national awards in measure drawings and producing HABS drawings. We've had studios that focus on the conservation and preservation of local sites, like the studio that was done on the Marine Stadium. The results of that studio eventually became the master plan adopted by the City of Miami Commission for the area around the Marine Stadium, a very important mid-century civic site. Other studios have focused, for example, on possible conservation restoration projects in the future for Cuba and Havana in particular. And then, of course, we look at other projects more closely linked to the South Florida region. The 20th century also saw the growth of preservation as a movement. It started as a grassroots movement in the 19th century in this country, and a concern to save both lands and edifices. But in the 20th century, that concern grew. So most of the legislation, federal, state, and local, that we have in place really developed in the 20th century, and preservation really went from being a movement to being a profession, without losing its connection to people, to the grassroots. This is very important because first and foremost, preservation is about saving places. Places that resonate with us, that fill our lives, that we participate in. In many ways, the student sees this through labs, through direct experience with communities, through engagement in the work of preservation, not just in a kind of scholarly ivory tower fashion, but actually in the field. We're in a plaza that was once a parking lot. When this building, the historic Coral Gables Museum, was restored, this parking lot was turned into a viable urban plaza. People come and have casual lunch here. They meet and encounter here. There are free jazz concerts on the plaza in the afternoons. A farmer's market takes place here. Civic functions occur here. This is a gift given back to the citizenry of this city. Preservation is about that as well. It's about learning how to dovetail together the old and the new in making new urban environments that creates social equity. People throughout the community use this place. In preservation, we are, of course, concerned about saving the great building, but we're also interested in vernacular structures, in districts, in main streets. We're interested in, for example, shotgun houses, beautiful African-American modest houses, or Rosenwald schools. We're interested in all cultures, Latino and Hispanic cultures and their contribution to this nation's history, Asian Pacific Islanders, African Americans. This is the way that the country continues to hold a mirror up to itself and understands its values. The green movement is very important to preservation. The young are particularly interested in this. The truth is, preservation has always been green. Being sensible about saving the places that matter and using them and bringing them back to vibrant life and then connecting them to new development is the best way for places to grow. This is what we believe at the School of Architecture, and this is what our students experience when they enroll in the Historic Preservation Certificate program. I'm hopeful that the next generation of architects will create a more lively America by artfully crafting and stitching the old and the new.